My job is unique. I'm a digital archivist. I spend my days sifting through the internet's forgotten corners, restoring corrupted media. Sometimes it's old crime scene footage. Other times it's unlisted files from the deep web. I thought I'd seen it all. But what I'm about to tell you should have never touched it. No one should have. It started with a package. No return address, no sender name. Just a small, plain brown box on my doorstep. Inside, there was a single black USB drive, but it was wrapped in a piece of plastic that looked melted, burnt. The moment I opened the box, a smell hit me. It was metallic and sour, like old blood mixed with the smell of ozone after a lightning strike. Tucked inside was a sticky note, the kind you find in any office, but the writing on it was scrawled in a faded red ink that looked disturbingly organic. It just said, "Play only once, never alone." Honestly, I thought it was a prank. Some elaborate joke from another archivist trying to spook me. So, I walked over to my computer, a little amused, and plugged it in. The file name was simple, almost clinical, entry_1.mp4. I checked the file size, 6.66 gigabytes. I almost laughed out loud. How cliché can you get? Almost. I clicked play. For the first few seconds, the screen was completely black. No sound, no visuals. I figured the file was a dud. But then, a low hum started to build. It wasn't digital static or the sound of a bad recording. It felt organic, like the sound of something breathing. A slow, deep, guttural breath. Then, a faint light began to flicker on the screen. The camera was struggling to focus, shaking slightly. And through that grainy, unstable flicker, I saw walls. But they weren't made of stone or wood or any material I could recognize. They were made of flesh, pale, pulsing, and wet. They seemed to shift and writhe as if something was moving just beneath the surface, pushing outwards. Every few seconds, a ripple would pass through the walls, like massive veins contracting under skin. I should have stopped the video right there. Sane person would have slammed their laptop shut. But I couldn't. I was frozen, mesmerized by the sheer wrongness of it all. The camera slowly panned, revealing a narrow corridor stretching into darkness. At the far end, there was a doorway, but it was framed by bones, not props. They were yellowed and jagged, unmistakably real human bones lashed together to form an arch. Someone behind the camera whispered. The audio was distorted, but I could hear a voice, trembling and hushed. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone. It sounded like a prayer, or maybe an apology. Then the person started walking forward. With each step, there was this wet, squelching sound. The floor looked soft and yielding, like it was breathing in time with the walls. As they moved deeper, the sound changed. The low hum was joined by a rhythmic thudding, a low, deep thump, 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 like a colossal heartbeat echoing from every direction at once, as if we were inside something massive and alive. The light from the camera flickered again, more violently this time. And in one of those brief, stuttering frames, for just a fraction of a second, I saw them. Faces, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, screaming silently as they were melted into the fleshy walls. I slammed my hand on the spacebar, pausing the video. My own heart was pounding in my chest. I had to be sure. I rewound, frame by frame. Paused again. Each face was human. Real. Their eyes were wide open in terror, their mouths locked in a permanent, silent scream. And they were still moving, twitching and writhing within the walls. Suddenly, I felt a change in my room. A shift in the air, that heavy stillness right before a lightning strike. The hair on my arms stood up. I whipped my head around, expecting to see someone standing behind me, but I was completely alone. The only sound was the hum of my computer. My eyes snapped back to the screen. I had to know what was at the end of that corridor. The camera kept moving forward, deeper and deeper into that hellish living hallway until it finally reached a massive open chamber. In the center of this cavern of flesh, something was hanging from the ceiling, suspended by thick, pulsating cords that looked like giant arteries. It was a heart the size of a car, beating slowly and powerfully, sending those rhythmic thumps echoing through the space. The cameraman whispered again, his voice cracking with pure terror. The engine of the damned. And then, something in the chamber looked back. It wasn't at the cameraman, looked directly at the camera. At me, I can't even begin to describe it. It was a shape that didn't make sense to my eyes, a shifting shadow that bent light around it. Eyes opened where there shouldn't be eyes, countless and burning. The camera shook violently, almost dropping. Real human screams erupted from my speakers, sharp and piercing. And over the cacophony of terror, a new sound emerged. A voice. It wasn't speaking English or any human language I'd ever heard. But on a primal level, every cell in my body understood its message. It said, "You are watching what was never meant to be seen." The video instantly glitched out. The screen filled with a storm of digital static. And then, for a single, horrifying frame, something familiar appeared. It was my face. I was staring straight into the camera, my own eyes wide with a terror I didn't recognize. I froze, my blood turning to ice. I hadn't recorded anything. There was no way this footage could know who I was. And yet, there I was. Behind me in the image, the same pulsing, fleshy walls, the same hellish red glow. My mouth was moving, forming words, but there was no sound. Then the screen went black. The deep hum stopped. Absolute silence. For a second, a wave of relief washed over me. It was over. It was just a video. Till I noticed my reflection in the dark monitor. It was still moving. It smiled, but I was sitting perfectly still. With a scream, I yanked the USB drive from its port, throwing it across the room. But the hum didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the computer anymore. It was inside my room, a low, heavy vibration that I could feel in my chest. Every light in my apartment began to flicker, casting the walls in a sickening red glow, one by one. And then I heard the voice again, not from the speakers, but whispered right behind my ear. It said, "entry_0002. I didn't even grab my keys. I just ran. I spent the night in my car, shaking, trying to convince myself I was hallucinating. The next morning, I cautiously went back. My apartment was quiet, but my computer was on. And on the screen, there was a new file icon on the desktop. entry_2.mp4. I checked the file's timestamp. It was created at the exact moment I had run out the door. I didn't play it. I couldn't. I dragged every file to the trash, did a full factory reset, took the USB drive outside, and smashed it into pieces with a hammer. I thought that would be the end of it. But later that night, as I was trying to fall asleep, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A notification glowed on the screen. New download complete. entry_2.mp4. I threw the phone into the kitchen sink and ran the hot water until it was steaming, but it didn't matter. The humming never stops now. It's a constant low thrum in the back of my hearing. Every single night, at exactly 3:33 a.m., every electronic device I own flickers and shorts out. And sometimes, in the static of a dead TV screen, I see it. That corridor of flesh. Sometimes, I see myself walking down it. And sometimes, I hear that voice again, whispering from the shadows of my own home. It says, "You watched what was filmed in hell. Now, it's time to film yours." Thank you for watching. If you have stories like this you want to share, let me know. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more tales from the digital abyss. Stay safe out there. You can tell a lot about a person by the sounds they leave behind. A laugh, a sigh, a scream. I work with sound, or at least I used to. My job was to clean up damaged audio, restore old tapes, remaster forgotten recordings, make the noise go away. But 3 months ago, I got a file I was never supposed to hear. They said it was an accident. But I don't think accidents leave bite marks in your memory. It came in through a private client. No name, no address. Just a USB drive in an unmarked envelope left at the front desk of the studio. On the label, in smudged ink, session_34_final. WAV, the manager shrugged. Probably another ghost hunting nut, he said. Just run your cleanup software, export it, and we'll invoice him. I wish I'd never plugged it in. When I loaded the file, it was strange. Over 10 minutes of pure static white noise with brief, distorted hums buried deep underneath. Almost like breathing, but mechanical. Like the sound of lungs that forgot how to be human. At first, I thought it was a corrupted field recording. But when I filtered out the noise, the waveform looked wrong. Not random, but patterned, like a heartbeat. And in the middle, around the 7-minute mark, I heard it. A man's voice, screaming. It didn't sound like a scream for help. It sounded trapped, forced through layers of distortion, like the microphone itself was trying to resist capturing it. I replayed it, slowed it down, isolated the frequencies. Every time I listened, I heard something new, another voice behind his, whispering, overlapping, in sync. A second tone that shouldn't exist. Like an echo that arrived before the sound it was supposed to follow. Then the screen glitched, the waveform spiked, and the studio speakers emitted a low hum that made my bones vibrate. I hit stop, but it kept playing. I traced the file's metadata, but it had no origin, no timestamps, no codec history. It wasn't created or transferred from any known device. That's impossible. The next day, I brought it to a friend, another engineer who used to work for the police, specializing in forensic audio. He looked at it for 10 minutes before pushing his chair back and saying, "Where did you get this?" I told him I didn't know. He just stared at me. "Don't play it again. Just delete it." I laughed. Then he handed me his laptop, the one that was running the file analysis. The screen was cracked. It wasn't cracked before. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the scream, how it felt familiar, like I'd heard it somewhere before. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text, no number, no name. It just said, "You shouldn't have cleaned it." Then, a few seconds later, a sound message. It was the same scream, except this time, it didn't stop. It looped endlessly, warping, deepening until it sounded like something else was screaming with him. I tried to turn my phone off. It didn't respond. The battery melted in my hand. When I looked up, the waveform display on my computer was still open even, though I'd unplugged it earlier. It was pulsing, like it was breathing. And in the reflection of the monitor, I saw someone standing behind me. I don't remember turning around, but suddenly I wasn't in my studio anymore. The lights flickered and everything sounded wrong, like I was hearing reality through a bad microphone. The air had texture. Every breath came through with static. And in front of me was the man from the scream, or what was left of him. His jaw hung open like it was broken in too many places to fix. And every time he moved, the sound of distortion followed, like the world had to glitch to make space for him. He opened his mouth, but instead of words, I heard my own scream come out. That's when I understood. The file wasn't recording him. It was recording me. Every time I played it, it replaced a little more of my sound, my breath, my voice, my presence with his. The static wasn't noise. It was a signal, a pattern, a doorway made of sound. I woke up in the studio again. The speakers were still humming softly. The file was gone, but the waveform was etched into the glass of the monitor, burned in. Every time I try to sleep now, I hear it. Not from my devices, from inside my ears. A faint, distant scream stretching through frequencies that don't exist. And sometimes, when it gets quiet enough, I can hear it recording again. I tried deleting every copy, smashing the drives, destroying the equipment. It didn't matter, because it doesn't need a file anymore. It's in the air, in the static between words. And if you've heard this story, even once, seeds already started listening to you too. So if you hear a scream that sounds like it's coming from nowhere, don't listen. Don't replay it. Don't even look for where it came from, because once you do, you're not the one listening anymore. I've seen a lot of weird things online. Cursed videos, ARGs, deep web clips that people swear are haunted. But I never believed any of it. I'm a digital archivist. I catalog and restore old video files for a living. I deal with broken data every day, corrupted pixels, static audio glitches. To me, it's all just code. Nothing mystical, at least. That's what I thought, until I found the Scream file. It came as part of an abandoned police evidence archive I'd acquired for a restoration project. It was just a single file, buried deep in a corrupted folder, labeled only case_0917_video. MP4, no context, no description. It's just a small, corrupted text file attached to it with a single chilling note, playback not advised. Naturally, I thought it was some kind of prank left by a previous archivist. A bit of dark humor. So of course, I ignored it. But when I opened the file, something felt immediately wrong. The video started normally in NUFA low-quality recording, probably from an old handheld camcorder. It showed a man sitting in a dimly lit room, staring directly into the camera. His eyes were bloodshot and sweat was dripping down his face. He looked utterly terrified. He leaned in close to the lens and whispered, his voice trembling, "If you're watching this, it means I didn't stop in time." Then he screamed. It wasn't a single human scream. It was a sound that tore through my speakers, a sonic assault that felt like the world itself was splitting open. The audio meter on my editing software went completely haywire, spiking into the red across every single channel. My expensive studio monitors crackled under the strain. Then, the video file froze. The playback timer stopped cold at exactly 2 minutes and 37 seconds, but the screaming didn't. I thought my software had glitched, that the audio buffer was just looping the last sound. It happens, so I force-quit the program. The scream kept going. I unplugged my headphones from the jack. I could still hear it, just as loud, echoing in the room. I frantically hit the mute button on my system's audio, still screaming. In a panic, I dove under my desk and yanked the power cord right from the wall socket. My monitors went dark. The room was plunged into silence and shadows. And in the darkness, it got louder. It wasn't coming from the computer anymore. It was coming from the room itself, from the air. It was a physical pressure, thick and heavy, making the windows vibrate in their frames. The lights in my apartment flickered erratically, even though the whole block still had power. And then, underneath the deafening roar of the scream, I heard something else whisper. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakable. It was whispering my name. When the sound finally stopped, the sudden silence was just as terrifying. I realized my entire body was shaking uncontrollably. I glanced at my clock. Only 2 minutes had passed since I'd yanked the power cord, but my system's recording log, which I later checked, showed something impossible. The audio file had continued to play for almost 6 hours straight. The next day, still shaken, I brought the file to my colleague, Aaron. We've worked together for years. He's the ultimate skeptic, even more so than I used to be. He actually laughed out loud when I told him the story. "It's a bad codec loop, man," he said, waving it off. "The file's probably just corrupted in a weird way. Send it over. I'll take a look." That night, my phone rang at 3:12 a.m. It was Aaron. I answered, but he didn't say anything. All I could hear was static, and underneath it, a faint, high-pitched screaming in the background. I tried calling back, but the number was disconnected. The next morning, I drove to his apartment. The front door was wide open. His laptop was on the desk, still recording, the webcam light glowing. On the screen, I saw his reflection frozen. His mouth was open, his eyes were wide with Tara's silent, digital scream. And the video file he'd been analyzing had stopped playing. The timer read 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Exactly the same as mine. I started noticing a pattern. It's every version of the file, no matter how I tried to re-encode it. Resave it, or compress it, corrupted at the exact same timestamp. 0 hours, 2 minutes, and 37 seconds. And anyone who heard the full, unadulterated scream, they disappeared. Their devices would be found melted, the data wiped clean, as if overloaded by some invisible force. But the sound always stayed. I tried to destroy the file. I deleted it. I formatted my drives. I even physically destroyed the hard drive it was on. But when I rebooted my system with a fresh install, it was there again. Sitting neatly on my desktop, but this time it had been renamed. He_is_not_done. MP4. I stopped sleeping. The exhaustion was setting in, but I was too afraid to close my eyes. I started hearing faint, distant screams in the white noise of the world. The hum of the air conditioner, the static between radio stations. It was like the sound was following me, hiding in frequencies only I could now hear. Once, I heard it coming from inside the walls of my apartment. Then, from the speaker of my phone when there was no call. Then, I heard it coming from inside my own voice as I tried to speak. I couldn't live like that anymore. I decided to confront it. I had to know what it was. I isolated my system, took a deep breath, and played the video one last time. The man in the recording appeared, same as before. But this time, he looked directly at the camera, as if he was looking at me. His eyes flickered completely black for just a split second, and this time, when he screamed, the video didn't freeze. It kept going. He leaned forward, his mouth stretching, unhinging, wider than humanly possible. And through the digital distortion, through that impossible sound, I heard it a second voice, screaming in perfect, horrifying harmony with him. It was my voice. The footage glitched violently, static bursting across the frame, and for a fraction of a second, the image shifted. I saw myself sitting behind the camera, in my room, in my chair, with the same terrified expression on my face. Then, the screen went black. A single line of white text appeared, burning itself into my memory. Screaming never ends. It just changes mouths. I don't touch technology anymore. No phones, no computers. I live as off the grid as I possibly can, but the screaming still finds me. Sometimes it's in the low hum of the refrigerator. Sometimes it's buried in the sound of the wind rattling the window pane. And sometimes when I speak my own words, come out distorted, layered with a faint, high-pitched echo, like something else is trying to use my voice. I think that's how it spreads. Through sound, through speech, through stories. Because now, when I close my eyes, I see that man's face, frozen mid-scream. And I realize he wasn't dying. He was transferring. The scream isn't a sound. It's a signal. It's a contagion that needs a host, a voice, to survive. And now that you've heard this story, even through mids, listening to you, too. It's in the sound waves that just hit your ears. So if you ever find yourself playing a strange video and you hear someone screaming long after the file has ended, don't close it, don't pause it, don't even try to stop it. Because the moment you do, it starts recording you. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more stories like this, be sure to follow and subscribe. Stay safe out there.